But where the rubber hits the road is how much did they say that they're willing to pay. And in this hypothetical online survey, customers revealed that they were willing to pay, and these amounts are relative to the amount that they'd pay for a plant in a traditional plastic container. So according from the online hypothetical survey, the consumer said they'd pay 82 cents more for if the plant was in a container with rice made out of rice hulls. Straw, 62 cents more. And wheat starch, nothing. And if you will forgive me for going back real quick, you'll notice maybe that this looks distinct, this looks distinct, at least distinctly different from this, whereas this, maybe not so much. So so keep that in mind, because again, it's easy to say, oh yeah, something's really important to me. You know, I'd pay $1 billion to save the bald eagle, but I don't have $1 billion, so I can't save it. So another method that economists have tried to use is to get people into a room and try to create a market type of environment where real money is exchanged. And so this is, we bring a lot of people into a room, and we take one of these plants and we auction it. And the person with the sort of second highest bid wins. Yeah, Hannah.
Were the people showing more than one pot of each type, like a replicate of pot of
No.
chrysanthemums in? Like,
It was just those four.
Because there does seem to be, like, some of the plants look better.
Oh, those were they were photoshopped to all be exactly the same plant.
Really?
Yeah. So the plant.
Exactly the same fit. You know, the rice hull.
I agree. I think I thought that they didn't, but it's.
It would have been better to have shown them like a sort of a random sample of what the pot is.
Maybe, yeah, randomize what's in it so that we can separate that value out. So when we do bring the consumer into the lab, if you will, and we ask the consumer to bid on a container, ask them to pay real money, then we get a lower price, as you might expect, but not as low as you might have anticipated to begin with. So rice hulls, 58 cents more than a conventional plastic container. Straw, 36 cents more. And here, where the consumer can actually see and handle the material, they are willing to pay extra for a wheat starch container. So I think that, if anything, this contrast, I think, really emphasizes the fragility, let's use that word, of these techniques. We can be pretty sure they're not going to pay anything higher than that. I'm not sure that we can be sure that they won't, that this won't be their maximum. I don't know if it would go lower in the real world. So there are some other techniques that we're going to use.
So for the real money auction, are you just auctioning off the pots, or are there plants in those pots during the auction?
It's done both ways to try to see, and again, they can't Photoshop the plant.
Right.
So it gets a little bit trickier. They do just try to do the pot without a plant in it. Again, who goes to Walmart just to buy a plastic container without a plant in it? So yeah, so I think it is tricky to get at this in the real world. One thing that we are going to do as we go forward is to use an actual product, allow the consumer to see what it is, and educate the consumer. It's been shown, the literature on this is actually quite dense. There's a lot of work that's been done on doing these types of surveys to really elicit consumers' willingness to pay, because I think we all have a healthy skepticism about people sort of in a non-market environment, like not really at the cash register. Are they really going to be able to know what they would pay when they got to the cash register? And so in this environment, one of the options that we have is to combine the two together. And that is to sort of have an online or a face-to-face survey where individuals will value each of the characteristics, and then once they've sort of said, oh yeah, this is the most, they sort of say which characteristics are important. And then you ask them how much would you pay for each characteristic. And then you say, okay, then you have to pay us this much. And they see the bottom line. And that sort of method is sort of a compromise between these two. Now, and of course the consumer always says, whoa, I didn't really want to pay that much. So they go back and they get to change their weights and change it around until the price gets to what they would be willing to pay. But the key factor to doing all these things is really to educate the consumer. Educate the participant in the survey or the participant in the auction, because these, it's a new market and people are not incredibly familiar with it. And it's been shown that if you take the time to educate the consumers, then you get really, from these types of auctions or surveys, if you take the time to educate the consumer, you get really reasonable answers. If you don't, you don't. So that's going to be part of our challenge going forward. Okay, so I want to take a few minutes to talk about a couple of other markets for biorenewable materials and look at how they formed, why did they form, how is that going to inform the market for the bioplastic containers. Now, right up front, I don't want it to be a mystery. It's the answer is these markets would not exist without substantial government intervention. Right? These markets exist because the government says they have to exist. And that's sort of maybe something to keep in the back of our minds as we're going through and trying to figure out how marketable are these going to be. Are people really going to adopt them? Well, ethanol really took off when it was mandatory. So first,
I got a question.
Yeah, go for it.
Why don't they just do supply and demand?
We don't know what the demand curve is.
No, I mean, why does the government have to mandate something? Why don't you just let the consumers decide if they want ethanol or not?
We could do a political philosophy discussion, and we could go down that road.
Should we go back to lead-based gasoline?
But the bottom line, just to not really answer your question, be political about it, it's because the supply and the demand curves don't intersect. So if we did just let the market work, it wouldn't work. We wouldn't have this. So because we think it just sort of kicks the question down the road a little bit, and then we get into a philosophical discussion that we can talk about later. So okay, so one place where the government has intervened quite substantially is in the ethanol market, so fuel from ethanol. And here is a graph that I think really does a good job of emphasizing and illustrating what the government intervention did. And in 2007, the government implemented, so in 2005, the government implemented a policy that required a certain amount of ethanol to be produced by 2015, I think it is. It was a really small amount. It wasn't a big deal. In 2007, that amount changed dramatically, and they set out the limits far, far into the future. Suddenly, we see after the 2007 legislation where it becomes really a mandate to the gas companies, to the blenders, to use ethanol, we see the price of ethanol and the price of corn moving sort of in lockstep. Now these, so on the left is the axis for dollars per bushel for the corn, right is dollars per gallon. Those have been lined up because in the sense that it takes, and I've now forgotten, so many bushels of corn to make 1 gallon of ethanol. So these are comparable and they are moving in lockstep with one another. Now that's what happened, but people are concerned not just because the ethanol market started driving prices in the corn market, but because around that same time, the blue line is the world price of corn in dollars per ton with an E at the end. The blue line is corn, and we see that shortly after the implementation of the mandate, the price of corn starts going up. So in the US, we see, suddenly we're using corn for fuel instead of food, and the price of corn rises. That's because the government is trying to starve us, right? If we look at wheat, the green line, we see a much more dramatic increase. If we look at red, the red line, that's rice. went off the charts. Really, there's a lot of different political, economic factors that tied into these things. Right? Prices started going up a little bit. This is the beginning of the Arab Spring. There's turmoil. There's the meltdown in 2008. A lot of these things sort of plays into the price increase. Ethanol plays a role, but economists have estimated only about 30% of the increase was caused by ethanol. So I'm going to maybe step through this a little bit quickly just to, so we can talk about the next market as well. But why did they even implement it? Why did the government have to intervene? It's a good question. It's not a question that I really know the answer to. This is my theory. I think it fits with the data loosely. It's a loose theory. So first of all, it's important to understand how this works. So oxygen helps gasoline burn more completely. It reduces tailpipe emissions. It optimizes the oxidation during combustion. And the Clean Air Act Amendment of 1990 required the use of oxygenated gasoline in areas with unhealthy levels of air pollution. Right? Think of Southern California. The gasoline had to have a certain amount of oxygenate in it in order to be on the market, to be sold. So it's a government regulation that mandated that.